Alien girl thought the human driver was taking her to her death, but he risked everything too. The rain hammered against the windshield of the hovering transport, each drop creating a tiny explosion of water that quickly joined the rivulet streaming down the glass. Through the downpour, the desolate landscape of Terrace 4 stretched out like a nightmare, jagged rock formations and barren plains, all painted in shades of rust and ash. Inside the transport, Lieutenant John Walker kept his eyes fixed on the treacherous terrain ahead, his face hidden behind the visor of his combat helmet. The vehicle hummed and occasionally lurched as it navigated the uneven ground, its anti-grav system struggling against the planet's unusual magnetic fields. In the passenger seat beside him sat Anara, her slender form tense with fear. Her pale gray skin seemed almost luminescent in the dim cabin light, contrasting sharply with the dirty yellow-brown scraps of fabric that barely constituted a top and skirt. Her wrists were bound by electronic cuffs that emitted a soft amber glow, casting eerie shadows across her delicate features. Long silvery hair fell in tangled waves around her shoulders, still damp from the rain that had soaked her during the transfer. John felt her eyes on him, those large almond-shaped eyes with irises the color of twilight. He'd been instructed not to engage, not to speak, not to show any hint of compassion. His orders were simple: transport the prisoner from the detention center to the extraction point. What happened after that wasn't his concern, but it was, God damn it, it was. A patrol of Craxus mercenaries appeared on the horizon, their massive combat vehicles cutting through the rain like predatory beasts. John tensed, his gloved hands tightening on the controls. The Craxes were notorious for their brutality, especially toward humans who dared venture into what they considered their territory. Identification, a guttural voice demanded over the comm system. Transport 437, authorized personnel transfer, John responded, his voice modulator disguising any trace of humanity in his tone. There was a pause, and John could feel sweat beading on his forehead despite the cabin's cool temperature. If they asked to inspect the vehicle. Proceed, the voice finally replied, and the patrol moved on, disappearing into the curtain of rain. John released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Beside him, Anara trembled, her bound hands clutched tightly in her lap. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the patter of rain and the hum of the engine. For a long moment John said nothing. Protocol dictated that he maintained silence, that he remained the faceless enforcer tasked with delivering this alien woman to whatever fate awaited her. But something in her voice, the raw fear, the resignation, made something crack inside him. With a decisive motion, he raised his visor, revealing his face to her for the first time. His eyes, a deep brown that appeared almost black in the dim light, met hers with unwavering intensity. "Sometimes," he said, his natural voice rough from disuse, "to save someone, you have to pretend to be a monster. I swore to get you out of here, no matter the cost." Confusion flickered across Anara's features, followed by the first fragile bloom of hope. "You're helping me." "That's the plan," John replied, lowering his visor again as they approached another checkpoint. "But for now, you need to look scared. Shouldn't be too hard." A humorless smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "I don't think I'll need to act." As they passed through the checkpoint, John's mind raced through contingencies. The extraction point was still hours away, and between them and freedom lay some of the most dangerous territory on this godforsaken planet. If they were discovered, if anyone suspected that this wasn't a sanctioned prisoner transport. "What happens if they catch us?" Anara asked, seemingly reading his thoughts. John kept his eyes on the path ahead. "They won't, but if they do," he glanced at her, taking in her frightened yet determined expression, "then we fight. And trust me, you haven't seen a human fight until everything's on the line." For the first time since they'd begun this journey, Anara's shoulders relaxed slightly. She was still bound, still technically a prisoner, still surrounded by danger on all sides, but no longer alone. The transport continued its journey through the relentless rain, carrying its two occupants toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the lights of the detention compound faded into the distance, and ahead lay either freedom or death. John Walker had made his choice. Now he would have to live with the consequences. "We're being followed," John announced, his voice tight as he checked the rear sensors. Anna twisted in her seat, wincing as the restraints dug into her wrists. Through the rain-streaked rear window, she could make out the faint glow of pursuit vehicles, their searchlights cutting through the downpour. "How did they find us?" she asked, panic rising in her throat. John cursed under his breath. Someone must have tipped them off. The checkpoint we passed, that guard was too interested in our clearance codes. He punched a series of commands into the console, and the transport lurched as it accelerated. Hold on. The vehicle shot forward, skimming dangerously close to the jagged rock formations that dotted the wasteland. John guided it with practiced precision, taking them deeper into the labyrinth terrain where the larger pursuit vehicles would struggle to follow. You're good at this, Anara observed, gripping her seat as they banked sharply around a massive boulder. A hint of a smile crossed John's face. 3 years in the Terran Special Forces tends to sharpen certain skills. Is that why you're helping me? Orders from your military? John's expression hardened. No. This is personal. Before Anara could press further, the transport shuddered violently. A warning light flashed on the console, bathing the cabin in pulsing red. Direct hit to the rear stabilizer, John growled. Those bastards brought heavy artillery. The transport began to lose altitude, the anti-grav systems failing. With expert hands, John guided it toward a narrow ravine barely visible through the curtain of rain. We need to ditch the transport, he said. Can you run in those? He nodded toward her bare gray feet. I'll manage, Anara replied, determination replacing fear in her voice. John brought the vehicle down in a controlled crash, the metal frame groaning as it scraped against stone. The moment they settled, he was moving, grabbing a rucksack from behind his seat and slinging it over his shoulder. Come here, he ordered, producing a small device from his belt. When Anara hesitantly extended her bound wrists, he pressed the device against the electronic cuffs. They sparked briefly before falling open. Anara rubbed her wrists, staring at him in surprise. You had the key all along. Not exactly a key, more like a universal override. Cost me 3 months' pay on the black market. He handed her a compact pulse pistol. Ever used one of these? She took the weapon, her slender fingers wrapping around it with unexpected familiarity. My people aren't as helpless as the Craxus propaganda suggests. Good. Follow me, stay low, and shoot anything that isn't me. They exited the transport into the punishing rain. The ravine offered some shelter from the wind, but the ground was slick with mud and loose stones. John led the way, his helmet's enhanced vision cutting through the gloom. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder, the whine of engines, the barked commands in the harsh Craxus tongue. They're deploying trackers, John said, checking a device on his wrist. We need to move faster. They pushed on through the ravine, which gradually widened into a valley dotted with the skeletal remains of ancient trees. The rain had begun to ease, which meant better visibility for them and their pursuers. Why is this personal for you? Anara asked as they paused behind a fallen tree trunk, catching their breath. Why risk everything for an alien you don't know? John was silent for a long moment, his eyes scanning the horizon. Finally, he removed his helmet, revealing a face marked by a jagged scar that ran from his right temple to his jaw. 2 years ago, I was part of a diplomatic mission to your home world, he said, his voice low. We were there to negotiate a trade agreement. The Craxus attacked during the talks, a surprise assault. They slaughtered the diplomats, took prisoners. I was left for dead. Understanding dawned on Anara's face. The massacre of Lumina. You were there. John nodded grimly. A family of your people found me, hid me, nursed me back to health at great risk to themselves. When the Craxus discovered them. He trailed off, his jaw tightening. I couldn't save them, but I swore I'd do whatever I could to fight back against the Craxus. When I learned they'd captured you, the daughter of a resistance leader, I volunteered for the extraction. Anara's eyes widened. How did you know who I am? Your father's network runs deep. There are sympathizers even among the Craxus ranks. He replaced his helmet. We need to keep moving. There's a safe house about 10 kilometers from here. If we can reach it by dawn, we might have a chance. As they resumed their trek, Anara studied the human beside her with new eyes. She'd been raised to believe that humans were self-serving opportunists, interested only in exploiting other species for resources and territory. Yet here was one risking his life to save her out of a sense of honor and debt. My father will want to thank you, she said softly, if we survive this. John didn't look back. Let's focus on the surviving part first. The valley narrowed again, forcing them into a tight passage between towering rock walls. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving behind a heavy silence broken only by their cautious footsteps and the distant sounds of pursuit. "Wait," John whispered suddenly, raising a hand. He tilted his head, listening. Something's not right. A moment later, the night erupted in chaos. Floodlights blazed from above, illuminating the passage in harsh white light. The amplified voice of a Craxus commander boomed through the darkness, "Surrender the prisoner. There is nowhere left to run." "Don't move," John whispered, his body tensing like a coiled spring. The floodlights from above cast harsh shadows across the narrow passage, eliminating any hope of stealth. Anara stood frozen beside him, the pulse pistol clutched in her trembling hand. "Final warning," the Craxus commander bellowed. "Surrender or be terminated." John's mind raced through options, each more desperate than the last. The passage offered no cover, no escape route. Above them, the silhouettes of Craxus soldiers lined the ridge, weapons trained on their position. "I have an idea," Anara whispered, her eyes fixed on the rocky ground beneath her feet, "but you'll need to trust me completely." Before John could respond, she dropped to her knees and pressed her palms against the earth. Her eyes closed in concentration, and a faint luminescence began to spread from her fingertips into the ground. "What are you?" "My people have a connection to mineral elements," she explained hurriedly, her voice strained. "We can persuade them," briefly. The ground beneath them trembled. At first, it was barely perceptible, a vibration that might have been mistaken for the rumble of approaching vehicles. Then it intensified, the tremors growing stronger until loose stones began to dance around their feet. Above them, the Craxus soldiers shifted uneasily. "What trickery is this?" the commander demanded, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. Anara looked up at John, her face pale with exertion. "When I say run, head for that outcropping." She nodded toward a jutting formation about 20 meters ahead. "And whatever happens, don't stop." The trembling intensified, cracks appearing in the passage walls. The Craxus began to fire wildly, energy bolts sizzling against stone as their targets became obscured by rising dust. "Run!" Anara shouted, lurching to her feet. John grabbed her arm, and they sprinted forward as the world seemed to collapse around them. Behind them, the passage floor buckled and split, a chasm opening where they had stood moments before. The Craxus troops on the ridge scrambled for stable ground as sections of the cliff face sheared away. They reached the outcropping just as a massive section of the passage ceiling came down, sealing off the way behind them. The dust cloud enveloped them, providing momentary concealment from any surviving pursuers. Anara sagged against John, her breathing labored. "That was more difficult than I anticipated." "That was incredible," John said, genuine awe in his voice. He supported her weight as they continued forward, putting distance between themselves and the collapse. "Why didn't you mention this ability before?" "It's not something we advertise," Anara replied weakly. "The Craxus have exploited my people enough already. If they knew we could manipulate geological structures, they'd turn you into living mining equipment," John finished grimly. "I understand." They emerged from the dust cloud into a landscape transformed by the recent seismic activity. New fissures scarred the earth, and what had once been a narrow passage was now a wider, more chaotic terrain of broken rock and exposed caverns. "The safe house." Anara gasped, still leaning heavily on John. "How far?" John checked his wrist device, now coated in a layer of fine dust. 7 kilometers, but we need to find somewhere for you to rest first. "That, whatever you did, it's drained you." "I'll be fine," she insisted, but her legs buckled as she tried to stand independently. John caught her, lifting her into his arms with surprising gentleness for a man of his military bearing. "Stubborn as hell, aren't you? Must be why your father's resistance has been such a thorn in the Craxus side." A faint smile touched Anara's lips. "He would say the same about me." John carried her toward one of the newly exposed caverns, his helmet sensors scanning for signs of life or danger. The interior was cool and damp, water dripping from the mineral formations that glittered faintly in the dim light filtering through the entrance. "It's beautiful," Anara murmured, her eyes half closed with exhaustion. "And defensible," John added pragmatically, setting her down on a relatively dry patch of ground. He removed his rucksack and extracted a thermal blanket, which he wrapped around her shoulders. "Rest. I'll keep watch." As Anara drifted into an exhausted sleep, John positioned himself near the cavern entrance, pulse rifle at the ready. The night was eerily quiet now, the sounds of pursuit silenced by the geological upheaval. Still, he remained vigilant, his training never allowing for complete relaxation in hostile territory. Hours passed. The planet's smaller moon rose, casting a pale blue light across the transformed landscape. John checked his wrist device periodically, monitoring both their position and Anara's life signs. Her vitals were stable but weak, whatever she had done had taken a severe toll. A soft moan drew his attention. Anara was stirring, her face contorted in pain. "Hey," he said, moving to her side. "Take it easy." Her eyes fluttered open, disoriented at first, then focusing on his face. "How long was I out?" "About 3 hours." "How do you feel?" "Like I've been trampled by a herd of Norian beasts," she admitted, attempting to sit up. "But I'll live." John offered her a water container, which she accepted gratefully. "That thing you did back there, is it dangerous for you?" Anara took a long drink before answering. "It's not meant to be used that way. Small adjustments to help plants grow or find water sources, yes. Creating earthquakes," she shook her head. "That's like asking your body to run a marathon without training." "You saved our lives," John said simply. "For now," she handed back the water container. "The Craxus are persistent. They'll regroup, bring in more forces. Then we'd better not be here when they do." John helped her to her feet, steadying her when she swayed slightly. "Think you can walk?" "Do I have a choice?" "There's always a choice," he said, his tone suddenly serious. "I can still get you to the safe house, but after that, if you wanted to go your own way, I wouldn't stop you." Anara studied him, confusion evident in her expression. "Why would I want that?" John looked away. "Because I'm not being entirely honest with you. The extraction plan, it's not officially sanctioned. I'm operating outside my orders." "You're what?" "The Terran military decided your father's resistance wasn't worth supporting anymore. Too risky, too few strategic benefits. They ordered all operations ceased." His jaw tightened. I disagreed. Understanding dawned on Anara's face. "You're a deserter." "I prefer independently operational," he replied with a grim smile. "But yes, once we reach the safe house, I'll be a wanted man by both the Craxus and my own people." Anara was silent for a long moment, processing this revelation. Finally, she reached out and touched his arm, her gray fingers stark against his dark combat suit. "Then we're fugitives together," she said. "My father's resistance will shelter you." Relief flickered across John's features, quickly replaced by his usual stoic expression. "Let's focus on getting there first. We still have a long way to go, and the Craxus will have called in reinforcements by now." They exited the cavern into the blue moonlight, moving with renewed purpose despite their exhaustion. The landscape was quieter now, the earlier chaos settled into an uneasy stillness. In the distance, the lights of a Craxus search party flickered like malevolent stars. "They're sweeping the area systematically," John observed. "We need to stay ahead of their search pattern." They set off at a steady pace, Anara moving more surely now, though still occasionally needing John's support. The terrain was challenging, broken ground, sudden drops, unstable surfaces, but they navigated it with growing synchronicity, each anticipating the other's movements. "You mentioned your father's resistance," John said as they paused to catch their breath behind a towering rock spire. "What exactly are they fighting for?" The official briefings were vague, Anara's expression darkened. "Freedom, dignity, the right to exist without being exploited." She gestured to the barren landscape around them. "This planet wasn't always like this. Before the Craxus came, it was verdant, alive. My people lived in harmony with it for generations. Then the Craxus discovered the mineral deposits beneath the surface. And decided your people were in the way," John finished. "Precisely. They presented themselves as partners at first, offering technology, protection. By the time we realized their true intentions, they had already established military control." Her voice hardened. "They've been systematically destroying our world and enslaving our people ever since. And your father leads the fight against them." Anara nodded. "He believes that with enough allies, enough pressure, we can force them to withdraw. But allies have been difficult to find. Including my people, John said grimly. Your government perhaps, but you're here. She met his gaze directly. That counts for something. Before John could respond, his wrist device emitted a soft alert. He checked it, his expression tightening. We've got company. Aerial patrol coming in fast from the east. They pressed themselves against the rock spire as a Craxus scout ship roared overhead, its searchlights sweeping the terrain below. For a heart-stopping moment, the light passed directly over their position, but the ship continued on its predetermined search pattern. That was too close, John whispered, his body still protectively shielding Anara's smaller frame. She nodded, acutely aware of his proximity. Despite the danger surrounding them, Anara couldn't help noticing the warmth radiating from his body, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the faint scent that was uniquely human, earthy and unfamiliar, yet somehow not unpleasant. We should move, she said, her voice unexpectedly husky. John stepped back, giving her space, but his eyes lingered on her face a moment longer than necessary. The safe house is still a few hours away. Think you can make it? I'm stronger than I look, she replied with a hint of defiance. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. I'm starting to see that. They continued their journey through the transformed landscape, moving with greater urgency now that they knew aerial patrols were active. The terrain gradually changed, the barren wasteland giving way to scattered vegetation, hardy plants that had somehow survived the Craxus mining operations. We're entering the borderlands, Anara explained as they passed a cluster of twisted silverleaf trees. The Craxus haven't completely devastated this region yet. Why not? The mineral deposits are less concentrated here, not worth the effort in their estimation. A bitter edge crept into her voice. At least some of our world remains. As they crested a ridge, a vast expanse of rolling hills came into view, dotted with the silver trees and patches of luminescent undergrowth that pulsed gently in the darkness. It's beautiful, John said softly. This is nothing compared to what once was, Anara replied, but there was pride in her voice as she gazed out over her homeland. They descended into a narrow valley where a small stream trickled between moss-covered stones. Like elsewhere, the vegetation was thicker, providing better cover from aerial surveillance. We should rest again, John suggested, noting Anara's increasingly labored breathing. Just for a few minutes. They settled beside the stream, hidden beneath the canopy of a large silver tree. John offered Anara a nutrient bar from his pack, which she accepted gratefully. Your people, she said between bites, what are they like? Beyond the military, I mean. John considered the question. Diverse, contradictory. Capable of tremendous compassion and terrible cruelty, sometimes simultaneously. He ran a hand through his short hair. We're still figuring ourselves out, I think. Still growing. The Craxus describe humans as dangerous primitives, Anara said. Unpredictable and volatile. They're not entirely wrong, John admitted with a wry smile. We can be all those things. But we're also loyal, determined, and surprisingly adaptable. He met her gaze. When we commit to something, or someone, we don't give up easily. The intensity in his eyes made Anara's heart race in a way that had nothing to do with their perilous situation. She looked away, suddenly flustered. My people value harmony above all, she said, changing the subject. Connection with each other, with our world. The Craxus see it as weakness. It's not weakness, John said firmly. Connection is what gives life meaning. Anara looked at him with new appreciation. That's not what I expected a human soldier to say. I'm full of surprises, he replied, his tone lighter. A comfortable silence fell between them as they rested, the gentle sound of the stream and the soft pulsing of the luminescent plants creating an almost peaceful atmosphere despite the danger that still pursued them. When they resumed their journey, something had shifted between them, a tentative trust that went beyond their shared predicament, a growing awareness of each other as individuals rather than simply representatives of their species. The safe house appeared just as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, a small structure built into the side of a hill, nearly invisible beneath a covering of native vegetation. We made it, John said, relief evident in his voice as he ushered Anara inside. The interior was sparse but functional, a communication console, basic living supplies, and a single sleeping platform. It's not much, John apologized, securing the door behind them. It's perfect, Anna replied sincerely, and for the first time since her capture by the Craxus, she felt truly safe. John moved to the communication console, inputting a complex sequence of codes. This will send an encrypted message to your father's resistance. They should be able to extract us within 48 hours. And then? Anara asked. John turned to face her, his expression unreadable. And then you go home, and I figure out my next move. The thought of parting ways created an unexpected hollow feeling in Anara's chest. You could come with me, she suggested. The resistance would welcome someone with your skills. Maybe, he said, but his tone was noncommittal. As the adrenaline of their escape began to fade, exhaustion overtook them both. They took turns washing away the grime of their journey with the limited water supply, and John treated a few minor injuries Anara had sustained during their flight. You should take the sleeping platform, he said, preparing to make himself comfortable on the floor. Don't be ridiculous, Anara countered. It's big enough for both of us, and you need rest as much as I do. John hesitated, then nodded. They settled onto the platform, maintaining a respectful distance despite the limited space, but as sleep claimed them, their bodies gravitated toward each other, seeking warmth and comfort in the aftermath of shared danger. Dawn broke over the borderlands, filtering through the camouflaged windows of the safe house in dappled patterns. John awoke first, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar weight against his chest. Sometime during their sleep, Anara had curled against him, her silvery hair splayed across his arm, her breathing deep and even. He remained still, reluctant to disturb her rest. The events of the past day replayed in his mind, their narrow escapes, the moments of connection, the growing awareness of something between them that transcended their different species and circumstances. Anara stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment, she seemed content in their position, then awareness dawned, and she pulled away slightly, a flush of darker gray coloring her cheeks. I apologize, she murmured. My people are naturally drawn to warmth during sleep. No apology needed, John replied, his voice rough from sleep. It was nice. Their eyes met, and the air between them seemed to charge with unspoken possibilities. The moment was broken by a sharp beep from the communication console. John reluctantly rose to check it, scanning the incoming message with growing concern. Bad news? Anara asked, sitting up on the sleeping platform. Complicated news, he corrected. Your father's resistance has received our message, but they are dealing with increased Craxus activity in their sector. The extraction has been delayed by at least 72 hours. 3 more days, Anara said, processing this information. Can we stay here safely that long? John ran a hand through his hair. The safe house is well concealed, and I've activated all the security protocols. As long as we're careful, we should be okay. He hesitated. There's something else. The message included intelligence that the Craxus are claiming you've been abducted by a rogue human operative. They're using it as justification to crack down on all human activities in the sector. They're painting you as the villain, Anara realized. It's a smart play, John admitted. Drives a wedge between our species, gives them an excuse to tighten their control. Anara moved to stand beside him, her gray fingers lightly touching his arm. We know the truth. My father will know the truth. The simple gesture of support affected John more deeply than he expected. In that moment, the professional distance he'd maintained, even as their personal connection had grown, began to crumble. They spent the day in necessary domesticity, taking inventory of supplies, reinforcing the safe house's camouflage, and establishing a watch rotation. The confined space made constant awareness of each other inevitable, and John found himself noticing details about Anara he hadn't before, the graceful efficiency of her movements, the musical quality of her laugh when he made a dry joke, the thoughtful expression that crossed her face when she spoke of her home. As evening approached, they shared a simple meal from the safe house stores. The conversation flowed more easily now, moving beyond the immediate concerns of survival to more personal territories. Do you have family waiting for you back on Earth? Anara asked. John shook his head. Not anymore. My parents died when I was young. Military became my family. And now you've left even that behind, she said softly. For me. For my people, for what's right, he corrected, though the distinction felt increasingly meaningless. The Craxus need to be stopped. Your people deserve their freedom. And what do you deserve, John Walker? Her twilight eyes studied him intently. The question caught him off guard. I haven't thought about it. Perhaps you should, she suggested. When this is over, when we reach the resistance. What do you want? John found himself unable to articulate an answer. For years, his identity had been bound up in his military service, his missions, his duty. Now, as a deserter, those anchors were gone. What remained was. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but weighted with possibility. In my culture, Anara said finally, there is a belief that those who face death together form a bond that transcends ordinary connections. We call it Telenar, souls tested by fire. Telenar, John repeated, the alien syllables strange on his tongue. What does it mean exactly, this bond? It means different things to different pairs, she explained. For some, it becomes a lifelong friendship. For others. She hesitated, that darker gray flush returning to her cheeks. For others, it becomes something deeper, a recognition that your souls are compatible, harmonious. The implication hung in the air between them. John found himself moving closer to her, drawn by something he couldn't name. And what do you think it means for us? He asked, his voice low. Anara met his gaze directly, vulnerability and courage mingling in her expression. I think. I would like to find out. The distance between them vanished. Their first kiss was tentative, exploratory, the meeting of two worlds, two biologies, two souls. John was surprised by the softness of her lips, the slight coolness of her skin against his. When they parted, both were breathing faster. I've never, Anara began. With a human, John finished. She nodded, a mixture of nervousness and anticipation in her eyes. We can take this slowly, he assured her, or not at all if you're uncertain. In answer, Anara kissed him again, more confidently this time. I am certain of you, John Walker. More certain than I've been of anything in a very long time. What followed was a discovery of differences and surprising similarities. Their bodies fit together in ways neither had anticipated, their distinct biologies creating new sensations, new pleasures. They moved together with increasing urgency, the outside world forgotten as they explored this unexpected territory between their species. Afterward, they lay entwined on the sleeping platform, the soft glow of the safe house's emergency lighting casting their joined shadows against the wall. That was. John searched for the right word. Harmonious, Anara supplied with a smile that lit up her entire face. He laughed, pulling her closer. Extremely harmonious. They drifted into contented sleep, the dangers that awaited them temporarily held at bay by the sanctuary they'd created in each other's arms. The next morning brought a new intimacy to their interactions, a comfortable awareness that something profound had shifted between them. They moved around the safe house in a dance of casual touches and shared glances, finding moments of joy despite their precarious situation. It was during their midday meal that Anara suddenly went still, her hand flying to her abdomen. What is it? John asked, immediately alert for signs of danger. I'm not sure, she said slowly. I feel different. Concern creased John's brow. Different how? Are you ill? Anara shook her head, her expression one of wonder rather than distress. No, not ill. Just, changed. She met his gaze, her eyes wide. My people, we have accelerated reproductive cycles compared to humans, and we can sense when conception has occurred. John stared at her, processing her words. Are you saying? I believe I am carrying your child, she confirmed, her voice a mixture of awe and uncertainty. It is unexpected. I didn't think our species would be compatible in this way. The revelation hit John like a physical force, a child, his child, their child. A being that would be neither fully human nor fully of Anara's species but something new entirely. Is this okay? He asked, moving to kneel beside her chair, taking her hands in his. Anara's expression softened. In my culture, children are seen as blessings regardless of circumstances, but I understand if for you this is a miracle, John interrupted. Unexpected, yes. Complicated, definitely. But still a miracle. Relief washed over Anara's features. Then you are happy. In answer, John pulled her into a gentle embrace. I never thought I'd have a family, he admitted. Never thought I deserved one. But with you? Yes, I'm happy. They held each other, the reality of their situation, fugitives on a hostile planet awaiting extraction, now with a child on the way, both more complicated and more meaningful than before. The resistance will protect us, Anara assured him. All of us. John nodded, though a new determination had settled in his chest. It wasn't just about doing what was right anymore, it was about securing a future for this new family he'd never expected to have. The communication console beeped again, drawing them reluctantly apart. John checked the incoming message, his expression growing serious. Change of plans, he said. The Craxus have intensified their search. They're conducting house-to-house searches in the borderlands, using advanced detection technology. The Resistance can't risk sending an extraction team directly to us. Then we're trapped. Anara said, her hand instinctively moving to her abdomen. Not trapped, John corrected. We just need to move. There's a Resistance outpost about 20 kilometers from here in the foothills of the Ashen Mountains. If we can reach it, they can get us to your father's main base. 20 kilometers through Craxus-controlled territory, Anara said, her voice steady despite the challenge ahead, with their forces actively searching for us. John met her gaze, seeing not fear but resolve. We've come this far, he said. We'll make it the rest of the way together. The Ashen Mountains loomed before them, their jagged peaks cutting into the amber sky like the teeth of some ancient beast. John and Anara had been traveling for nearly 2 days, moving only during the planet's brief nights and hiding during the long daylight hours. We're close now, John said, consulting his wrist device as they crouched in the shadow of a massive boulder. The outpost should be just beyond that ridge. Anara nodded, conserving her energy. The journey had been taxing, particularly in her condition. Though her pregnancy was still in its earliest stages, her body was already adapting, channeling resources to nurture the unprecedented union of their genetic material. How are you feeling? John asked, his eyes softening as they always did when he looked at her now. I'm fine, she assured him, though the fatigue was evident in her voice. Our child is resilient, like its father. John smiled, reaching out to brush a strand of silvery hair from her face. And determined, like its mother. The tender moment was shattered by the distant whine of Craxus engines. They pressed themselves against the boulder as a patrol ship passed overhead, its searchlight sweeping the terrain. They're still searching, Anara whispered once the ship had moved on, even here. We've evaded them this long, John replied with quiet confidence. We just need to make it a little farther. They continued their ascent as darkness fell, picking their way through the treacherous mountain terrain. The vegetation here was sparse but hardy, twisted shrubs that clung to the rocky soil and occasional patches of the luminescent undergrowth that had become Anara's beacon of hope throughout their journey. As they rounded a sharp bend in the narrow path, John suddenly raised his hand, signaling Anara to stop. Ahead, barely visible in the growing darkness, stood a figure holding what appeared to be a primitive projectile weapon. That's far enough, a voice called out, not in the harsh Craxus tongue but in Anara's native language. We seek sanctuary, Anara replied in the same language, stepping forward slightly. I am Anara, daughter of Commander Theron of the Northern Resistance. The figure lowered its weapon slightly. Prove it. Anara hesitated, then placed her palm against a nearby patch of luminescent plants. They responded immediately, their glow intensifying and shifting to a deep blue that illuminated her features clearly. The gift of communion, the figure acknowledged, lowering the weapon completely. Follow me. Quickly, they were led through a series of switchbacks that seemed designed to confuse anyone attempting to track them, finally arriving at what appeared to be a solid rock face. Their guide pressed his hand against a specific point, and a section of the rock slid aside, revealing a narrow entrance. Inside, the outpost was larger than it appeared from outside, a network of natural caverns enhanced with technology that seemed to blend seamlessly with the living rock. A dozen or so of Anara's people moved about the space, all stopping to stare as the newcomers entered. Anara, a tall male with elaborate markings on his gray skin, stepped forward, disbelief in his voice. We received word of your escape, but... His eyes shifted to John, narrowing slightly, and this is the human who aided you. This is John Walker, Anara confirmed, her hand finding John's in a gesture that did not go unnoticed. He risked everything to save me, and he deserves our respect. The tall male studied John for a long moment, then inclined his head. I am Naren, cousin to your father. Any who aid our cause are welcome here. His formal tone suggested the welcome might be more political than personal. They were provided with food and clean clothing and a small private chamber where they could rest. As they settled in, John could feel the curious and sometimes suspicious glances of the resistance fighters. They'll accept you in time, Anara assured him, sensing his discomfort. It's not me I'm worried about, John replied. It's us. Our child. Anara placed her hand over his. My people value life in all its forms. Once they understand the depth of our connection, they will embrace what we've created together. The next morning, they were summoned to meet with the outpost's leadership council. 5 elders sat in a semicircle with Naren standing to one side. Anara and John stood before them, their posture straight despite their exhaustion. We have contacted Commander Theron, the central elder announced. He is overjoyed at your safe return, Anara, and extends his gratitude to the human who facilitated it. His name is John, Anara said firmly. The elder inclined her head in acknowledgement. John Walker, your actions have earned you the gratitude of our people. However, there are complications. The Craxus are using my supposed abduction of Anara as justification for increased aggression against both our peoples, John finished for the elder. I understand the complication my presence creates. The elder's expression remained impassive. It is more than that. Your military has disavowed you. They claim no knowledge of your actions and have offered no objection to the Craxus hunting you down. John nodded grimly. I expected as much. There is also the matter of your relationship with Anara, another elder said, his tone carefully neutral. We have noticed a unique energy signature emanating from her life force, one that suggests a blending. Anara stepped forward, her chin raised proudly. I carry John's child, our child, the first of its kind, a bridge between our worlds. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The elders exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable to John but clearly communicating volumes to each other. Such a union is unprecedented, the central elder finally said. Our records contain no instance of successful reproduction between our species and any other. Yet here we are, Anara replied, her hand finding John's again, living proof that connection transcends biological differences. The eldest of the council, a female with intricate silver markings across her gray skin, leaned forward. In the ancient texts, there is a mention of a prophecy, when the stars align and worlds collide, new life shall bridge the divide. Many have interpreted this as metaphorical, but perhaps. She studied the couple intently, perhaps it was more literal than we understood. What does this mean for us? John asked directly. For our child. It means, Naren interjected, stepping forward, that your arrival may be more significant than a simple rescue mission. The Craxus have nearly destroyed our world, but they have failed to break our spirit. Now, as they escalate their aggression, you bring us something we have desperately needed. What's that? Anara asked. Hope, Naren replied simply. A living symbol that different worlds can not only coexist but create something new together, something stronger. The council deliberated further, speaking in rapid exchanges that John couldn't follow. Finally, the central elder addressed them again. We will transport you to Commander Theron's main base immediately. Your presence, both of you, may be the catalyst we need to unite the scattered resistance factions and push back against the Craxus once and for all. As they prepared to depart, Anara led John to a secluded alcove within the outpost, away from curious eyes. Are you okay with this? She asked softly. Being a symbol, a catalyst. It's not what you signed up for when you rescued me. John cupped her face gently in his hands. When I made the decision to save you, I wasn't thinking about symbols or causes. I was thinking about one person who deserved freedom. His thumb traced the delicate line of her cheekbone. Everything that's happened since, finding you, loving you, creating this new life together, it's more than I ever imagined possible. If our story can help your people find their freedom too, then I'm all in. Anara's eyes shimmered with emotion. You humans are remarkable creatures, so adaptable, so resilient. My people could learn much from yours. And mine from yours, John replied. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what our child represents, the best of both worlds. Their journey to the main resistance base took them deep into the heart of the Ashen Mountains, through hidden passages and ancient tunnels that the Craxus had never discovered. Along the way, John observed the sophisticated yet naturalistic technology of Anara's people, systems that worked with the planet's energy rather than against it, interfaces that responded to touch and thought in equal measure. Your civilization is far more advanced than our intelligence suggested, he commented as they traveled in a transport that seemed to merge seamlessly with the living rock of the tunnels. We choose to advance in harmony with our world, not in dominion over it, Anara explained. The Craxus mistake this for primitive thinking because they cannot imagine progress without destruction. The main base, when they finally reached it, was a marvel of engineering and natural integration, a vast complex built within and around a massive cavern system, illuminated by the same luminescent flora that had guided their journey. Waterfalls cascaded through the space, providing both beauty and practical water management. Gardens of exotic plants provided food and medicine, and everywhere, Anara's people moved with purpose, their resistance not just surviving but thriving despite the Craxus oppression. Commander Theron was waiting for them as they disembarked from the transport. He was tall, even for one of Anara's species, with elaborate markings that denoted his leadership status, but what struck John most was the unmistakable resemblance to Anara in his eyes, the same twilight hue, the same intensity. "Father." Anara rushed forward, embracing him with unrestrained joy. Theron held his daughter tightly, his stoic demeanor momentarily cracking to reveal profound relief. When they separated, his gaze shifted to John, assessing the human with a leader's calculated scrutiny. "So you are the one who defied both the Craxus and your own people to save my daughter," he said, his deep voice carrying easily through the cavern. John straightened, meeting the commander's gaze directly. "I am." "And now you have given her a child," Theron continued, his tone unreadable. "A child that carries the future of two worlds in its very existence." "I love her," John said simply. "The child is a blessing we didn't expect, but one we embrace fully." Theron studied him for a long moment, then did something that surprised everyone present. He extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting that John had taught Anara during their journey. "Then you are family," Theron declared, clasping John's hand firmly. "And family stands together." In the months that followed, John and Anara became the heart of a growing movement. The story of the human who risked everything to save an alien prisoner, of their unprecedented bond, and the child they had created together spread through the resistance networks and beyond. Even among the Craxus-controlled settlements, whispers of their story inspired acts of defiance and solidarity. John's military training proved invaluable to the resistance, introducing new tactics and perspectives that complemented the natural abilities of Anara's people. Together, they began to push back against Craxus control, liberating settlements and sabotaging mining operations with increasing success. As Anara's pregnancy progressed, her connection to the planet seemed to intensify. The luminescent plants responded more vigorously to her touch, and she discovered she could influence larger geological formations with less strain than before. The elders theorized that the blended life growing within her was enhancing her natural abilities, creating a synergy between human adaptability and her people's connection to their world. 6 months after their arrival at the main base, a remarkably accelerated gestation period that the medical experts attributed to the unique hybrid nature of the pregnancy, Anara went into labor during a rare moment of peace. The resistance had just successfully liberated a major settlement, dealing a significant blow to Craxus' control of the region. John never left her side throughout the process, his steady presence anchoring her through the intense experience. When their son finally emerged into the world, his first cry echoing through the birthing chamber, both parents were overcome with wonder. The child was beautiful, his skin a lighter shade of gray than Anara's, with subtle hints of human pigmentation creating a marble-like effect. His eyes, when they opened, were a striking blend of John's deep brown and Anara's twilight hue, creating an iridescent quality that seemed to shift in different lights. A dusting of silvery hair, softer than Anara's but with the same luminescent quality, crowned his perfect head. "He's magnificent," John whispered, cradling his son with careful hands that had once been trained only for combat. "He needs a name," Anara said softly, her fingers tracing the delicate features of their child's face. "In my culture, names are chosen to reflect destiny." "What destiny do you see for him?" John asked. Anara considered, looking from their son to the men who had risked everything to save her, the men who had shown her that courage and compassion could exist even in the darkest circumstances, that connection could bridge the most profound differences. "Keelthirin," she suggested, honoring her father but with a prefix from the old language, keel meaning bridge or pathway. Keelthirin. John tested the name, feeling its weight and rhythm. A bridge between worlds. It's perfect. As if recognizing his name, the infant's eyes focused briefly on his father's face, a tiny hand reaching up to grasp John's finger with surprising strength. Commander Theron himself came to see his namesake, his usually stern features softening as he beheld the child. "He carries the future in his very being," the commander observed, not just of our resistance but of a new way forward. News of Keelthirin's birth spread rapidly, becoming a rallying point for the resistance. What had begun as scattered acts of defiance coalesced into a coordinated movement that the Craxus found increasingly difficult to suppress. More significantly, rumors of the human-alien child reached sympathetic ears within the Terran military, former colleagues of John who had questioned his disavowal and the alliance with the Craxus. 3 months after Keelthirin's birth, as John was teaching a group of resistance fighters advanced infiltration techniques, a communication came through on a frequency that hadn't been used since his desertion, his old military channel. The message was brief but clear: a faction within Terran Command had broken with official policy and was sending support. The Craxus alliance had been deemed contrary to core human values by this growing faction, and they wanted to make amends by supporting the resistance. That night, as John and Anara stood on a high balcony carved into the mountain face, their son sleeping peacefully in Anara's arms, they watched as the first Terran ships descended through the atmosphere, not as conquerors or exploiters, but as allies. "You did this," Anara said, leaning against John's solid warmth. "You showed both our peoples that there is another way." John shook his head, his arm tightening around her shoulders. "We did this together." He looked down at their sleeping son, this miraculous bridge between worlds. "All 3 of us." As the ships landed and new allies joined their cause, John reflected on the journey that had brought him here. What had begun as a rescue mission, a human driver taking an alien girl to what she thought would be her death, had transformed into something far greater. He had risked everything, yes, but what he had gained in return was beyond measure: love, family, purpose, and the chance to help forge a future where different worlds could not only coexist but thrive together. In Keelthirin's peaceful face, John saw that future taking shape, a future born from courage, defiance, and the unstoppable power of connection across the stars.